So, how you guys doing? It looks like we've turned from snow to wind. It's quite beautiful out. Everything's buried in we had about 14 inches of snow. So how's it going this morning for everybody? Here we've had a lot of snow, and now it's sunny. Hopefully we'll melt soon. Spring will come. Well, I'm just hadn't really planned for sure what for subject we're gonna. Yeah, it is beautiful out. Hadn't planned what subject we'll talk about. Any questions you guys have got? I'll try to answer them. I heard from George Gammon that April 1st was going to be the first day that the citizens of the country could get Fed accounts. So it looks like they're rolling the new digital currency system out. That's kind of, to me, kind of a frustrating thing because I'm not very interested in seeing this new currency coming. I mean, it may not be so different from the old one, except that they want to put all the accounts with the Federal Reserve. I believe that if I understood right, it was April 1st you could start applying for an account with the Fed. Well, that's true. So they say state parks aren't allowing cash anymore in a lot of places. Kind of funny that cash is no longer wanted. A lot of people think it'll be really handy if we don't have to use cash, but I don't like that at all. I like cash. I think it gives more an individual more freedom with our money, in my opinion. But some people think otherwise. Yeah, so I woke up this morning and wife told me it's snowy outside and a lot of snow, and I thought she was joking. I looked out the window and oh my. We had at least a foot then. Now there's about 14 inches total. And I think hopefully it will melt off fast. I mean, the sun's shining, so. And the sad part is it's such a heavy, wet snow. Snowblower doesn't blow it. Snowblower only blows it when it's frozen. It's soft, at least mine. Yeah, so any questions you guys have got, I'll try to answer them. I've been working on the shop barn, putting siding on. I've been hoping that the snow would melt away my metal's underneath the snow right now. I was hoping it would melt so I could get to it, and then I'll put the roof on, but I may have to end up shoveling that snow off after all. I don't like putting the roof on with slippery metal, and usually when it's had snow on it all winter. Last year I put the sawmill barn up in the middle of the winter. A little ice on that metal gets really slippery, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, if you hurry and do it, you'll have a softer landing.
Well, from that roof, it's going to be a long fall. I think that's about, I'd say at least 16 foot. So I got a 8 and a 7 plus 1 foot. Yeah, so it'll be about 16 feet from the bottom of the roof. That'd be a pretty good fall. That wouldn't be fun to fall off that. There was one time I was helping at a Amish frolic, and I was helping build a house. And I was walking across we have the little beams that hold the ceiling up. I was just walking across it, and one of them broke, and I fell 8 foot. So 8 foot can really surprise you. I hit the ground hard enough. It kind of knocked me out, and I first thing I started doing was asking where my hammer was. Can it snow to the end of May? Yeah, it could. I hope it doesn't, but we'll see. It'd be nice if it would stop snowing. But we take it as it is, I guess. We're living in the North Country. For those of us who live in the North Country, we have to accept it. I lived 8 foot is a long drop. Yeah, it is. I was in Belize for 10 years. Didn't have any winter at all. And I always thought I'd get used to the heat. And I decided, the longer I was there, I decided, you know what, I do not want to grow old in this climate. It was just, the sun was so hot. Very rarely we had cool. Um, you'd sweat and not cool down. And finally, I decided, you know what, I'm moving out of the tropics. I like a country that's got some cold to it too. I'm moving up here was further north than I'd ever been, which, yeah, I think I decided I love the cold more than the heat too. I think my wife wants to show you her little peppers she's starting. She started them in eggshells. That was her idea. And my skin burns so bad in the sun, I'm not too fond of the hot sun anyhow. Because down in Central America, the sun's directly overhead. It's a lot hotter than up here. I mean, up here we got nice summers. It isn't that hot. Missouri was. Oh, yeah, she's showing my peppers we started in tomatoes. Hopefully, I didn't start them too early this year. Last couple of years, it's been a little too early, and they got too long. But we'll see what happens this year. It's getting about time to do the other plants. So how are your guys' planting going? I had I'm hoping this year I can grow most of our own food again. I lived in Singapore on the equator and couldn't take it. Yeah, Singapore would be very similar to Belize, probably a little warmer maybe. We were north of the equator in Belize, but it was pretty close. Charlotte, North Carolina, I suppose, Ellen. Yeah, Charlotte's. I've only been through Charlotte. I lived in Kentucky for a year, and funny thing was the cold in Kentucky was colder than the northern cold. A lot of people say, "Well, how do you stand that northern cold?" I think you get used to it for one, and two, it's a dry cold because when it's cold, it's frozen. I mean, down in Kentucky when it was cold, it's too hot for me here in Charlotte. Yeah, I've never lived that far south. I lived in Kentucky, but like I said, the cold in Kentucky felt colder than Ohio. It felt colder than here sometimes. I mean, we get colder temperatures here, but it's just the way it feels, the humidity. Yeah, I've never been to Alaska. I've always wanted to go, but it's a long ways, and I've got animals to take care of and cow to milk, and I've always said, well, maybe I should leave the wife and go to Alaska with the boys, but I don't know.
And that will be the last we see of you.
She said the last to see of me. Well, I hope not.
You'll be barefoot.
No, I've always had the dream of moving to Alaska wilderness, but
I've always had a phobia of bears.
my wife says she doesn't like bears. I think for me, it's the main thing about Alaska was the money issue. It looks to me like it's pretty expensive up there, and I'm not a rich guy, so it's hard enough to survive as it is. And when you go to an expensive place, you got to have, for startups, you got to have money, or start real small. I mean, that's possible. I think if I took my sawmill with me, got a good piece of land with trees on it, I could probably build my own buildings, which helps a lot. You just saw your own lumber, but that's one thing about a small band mill I think is really handy. It's nice to have that ability to saw wood. Yeah, if it wouldn't be for the band mill, I couldn't do much because I couldn't afford to buy lumber. I always thought about in the old days how the houses were built from their own places. The shingles they used to make, the wooden shingles, and then in Europe they make those thatch roofs. I like those thatch roofs, and I've always wondered. You don't see many of them in America, but over like in Denmark, where my great grandfather came from, at least half the houses had these thatch roofs, and they were, a little over a foot of thatch on the roof, and they said they last 30 years, some of them. they're done right, they'll last 30 years. That's a long time for a thatched roof. The only thing I'd worry about is the fire, but like if a spark come out of the chimney and land on your roof, that wouldn't be too fun. Yeah, we like visitors. We can always use help here too. We don't have a lot of in the winter here. We don't have a lot of places to stay that are warm. But we have a pop-up trailer we let people stay in when it warms up. We had I used to run the workaway program, take volunteers in, give them food and a bed, and they would work, so many hours a day. And that was interesting. Your plants are looking good. Have you got any started? Yeah, my wife wanted to send you some seeds, Nikki. I don't know. What were you going to send Nikki for seeds?
Some purple green beans.
Yeah, she said she got some seeds for you. I guess you'll find out when you get them. I don't know if anybody wants sweet corn locally. I've got a lot of sweet corn left. Thankfully, it didn't all burn. I had a Yeah, I do, Alan. I don't do as much as I used to. When I was younger, I used to like to debate people. I've gotten to where now I realize that it's hard to change people's opinions, and so sometimes it's best just to let them be if it's not important. Because what had happened when I was younger, I'd start talking to somebody and I'd try to convince them of what I believed, and it ended up realizing that people have their opinions, and when they believe something, it doesn't matter what the Bible says. Sometimes it's hard to convince them otherwise. I started a church group down in Belize, and there was 5 families there, and people would come from other places to visit sometimes. And I've sat in a room before where there were 8 guys, and all 8 of them couldn't agree with each other on about a single point, it seemed like. So, yeah, religion can be interesting. It's interesting how we all have we don't all read the same Bible, but we have the Bible. And then it seems that I found that my goal was to try to follow the Bible as it says and do what it says. Try to walk not according to man's creeds or how would you say it? Confessions, but to stand by the word of God. And then what happens, I felt like, is you get people who say they believe the Bible, yet when you bring the Bible up, they'll say, oh, we don't believe that part of it. Well, you be quiet, Anna. Oh, here's the main thing. Yeah, she's eating snow. That's one thing I don't do so much of anymore since I've gotten older. I think when I was younger I did, but it's not quite as fun to eat snow anymore. No, I read the King James 1611 and then Martin Luther Bibles.
And the German Bible.
Yeah, it was. I have one Bible, Frostshire, I really like, but how old am I? I am 42. I was born in 1980, Inglewood, Colorado. I always say I was born east of the Continental Divide. My rest of my family were all born west of the Continental Divide. My dad's family were immigrants from. His grandparents were immigrants from Denmark and Germany, and his mom's side were immigrants from Scotland, England, Denmark, and Germany. And then mom's side, they go all the way back to Mayflower. So my mom's side has some early American settlers in it, but her top line was Reformed Lutherans that had come over to Pennsylvania. But they lost their language ways back. So my great grandmother would have still spoke German, And she always told my dad, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch." My dad didn't know what it meant. So of the whole family, I think I'm the only one that speaks German. The rest of them speak just English. Well, I speak Spanish too, I guess. So how many of you guys on here can speak German? My wife speaks a little bit of it. She's getting better at it, I think, sometimes. But huh? What about Anna? Not me. Anybody speak Spanish?
Hola.
You don't speak Spanish. My wife said, "Hola." She don't speak Spanish either. No, I've been trying to learn Russian too, but it's a little trickier on Russian. I tried Chinese for a while and didn't fare well with Chinese. I have a hard time pronouncing their words. Language is an interesting thing because for me, the German language was easier to learn because English and German have a lot of similarities. I mean, the basis of English, all basic English words are Germanic for the most part. And so I actually learned 3 kinds of German. I learned Pennsylvania German, High German, Plattdeutsch. And the Plattdeutsch, in some ways, is slightly closer to English than the regular High German. Chinese. Yeah, for me, Chinese is a rough one. I had a hard time pronouncing it. My voice just couldn't get the sounds right. Maybe if I practiced long enough. Oh, David now come up. Say hi. He's eating snow too. Anybody want snow? There's plenty out there. What? Yes, if anybody's got any questions, I'll try to answer them for you. Education languages. Yes, I don't know. Some people, I don't know how. For me, I didn't start learning German until after I was 18. And then I learned Plattdeutsch when I was 30, after I was 36. Spanish after I was, after my 30s. So for me, it wasn't that hard. If you're around the people and you talk with them, listen to them. What I would do is I'd write the words down as they sounded to me, and then I would just read them off to myself every night, and that would help me to learn languages. A lot of time with the English language, people want to learn English. It's pretty tough. The English is a tricky language. I think after 1066, the French messed it up. They came in and took over England and ruled England forced them to speak French for 100 years, and that really took the English language for a turn from what it was. The funny thing is, too, the main English language people speak now is based off the London dialect, and they say London dialect was actually the furthest away from the Old English that it was. But no, language has always interested me. It's funny because you look at I can't read Greek or Hebrew. I do have some Greek. I've done some Greek studying, but can't read it. It's funny, back in the 1800s, probably more people could read Greek and Hebrew than can now. What? Yeah, there was been sawing on the sawmill. 1820 dictionary good for old definitions. Yeah, I don't have an old dictionary anymore. I used to have an old one that burned in a house fire. I like the old ones better than the modern ones. They start changing the definition of words, and that kind of messes with things. There's a few words I've always thought were interesting. When you study language, you wonder, well, where in English did that word come from? And I've always wondered where girl came from, the word girl, because it's not a Celtic word and it's not a Germanic word, and it just pops up in English, and it doesn't have any comparison with the Germanic languages. In Germanic, we say Mädel, Miel, Mekas, Maid. It's all with an M. And then all at once in English, you have girl, the word girl pop up. It's like, where did that come from? I don't know. And I used to wonder about horse. And I figured horse out. You know, the word horse, if you listen to old English people, they say Haas. Well, that goes back to the old German word Horas. And then the Germans started saying Ras or Fiat, 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 Piet. That's the Dutch type. But if you go, that all comes from the old word Horas or Fiat. And English took Haas down to horse. And then cow and sheep are pretty much the same. You got Kuh and Schof. And then Gas is the German one. That's different from goat. And Ziege, High German, Ziege. I've always wondered that was another one that didn't match up. So the English must have, I don't know where they got the word goat from. Yeah, it's true. Amish do say Gale. I'm not sure that one came from either. That's a dialect. It comes out of the Swabish dialect, I think. I'm not sure where that one came from either. Will you please not get snow on my desk? Yeah, so if anybody wants to see snow, you can come up and visit. There's plenty of, you have to walk in the lane though. But John turns to John. Yeah. I think in German we say Johann. We say Johann. It's what happened to your eye? Pen mark? But
it's this. It's this.
I always said that the Amish they actually speak more English in their language than the old Mennonites. The old Mennonites they don't talk a whole lot of English in their language because they went to Mexico, and then from Mexico to Belize and Bolivia and Peru, Paraguay, Uruguay. And they speak a lot of Spanish in there, mixed in their language, and some Russian too, because they live back in. They had moved from Holland to Russia, and from Russia to Canada, and from Canada to Mexico. So in their language, they've got some Russian words and they've got some Spanish words, but not a lot of English ones. And the Amish, they have quite a bit of English in their language.
No.
Hey, stop fighting with each other now. Keep your cold hands off him now. Yeah, there was I don't know if you guys, when you plant your gardens, if you were when you're planning on planting beans, I always find that David, you need to stop fighting to get down, okay? All right. If you plant your beans further apart, they do better. If you plant them too close together, they get really they don't do as good. So when you plant your beans, make sure you keep them about 6 inches apart.
Snow ice cream?
Oh, I was bringing snow ice cream. That's not the best thing for them, but I guess we'll take some of it. All right, that's good. All right, I'm trying to stay my ice cream, miss. So we got any questions?
Anyone wants to know how to make snow ice cream, tell me to go check out my channel.
Oh, my wife said if you guys want to know how to make snow ice cream, check out her channel. Yeah, we do. I like ice cream, but I don't like the sugar, so I say sugar's not good for people. What's that? Yeah. Did you put molasses in that or maple syrup?
It's sweetened condensed milk.
Oh, condensed milk. Can you review this? What do you mean review it? I didn't get your question. What you meant? See, Alan says, "Can you review this?" Yeah. I think I can. We don't have a whole lot of internet sometimes, so it's kind of hard to watch long streams. But for some reason, whenever I try to do the live chats with people, they don't do as well. The pictures for, and I guess the internet's not as good. No, if you want to contact me, I've got an email. You can email me or call me. Hey, go get a baby cat and show them the baby cats, will you? So, any of you guys planting your gardens yet down south? Well, here's the baby cats. They're getting bigger. How many? I think it's been a week or two now since they've been born. Yeah, she snuck in the house and had her babies under the bed. It was so cold outside, I've been trying to leave her in here. My email's on my YouTube information, I think. I got ourheritageseeds@gmail.com. Now, hopefully in the future, I'll be selling seeds. And if anybody wants to buy northern seeds, I'll have some. What are the drivers charging in your area? Not sure. I don't hire drivers very often. I've got a neighbor that usually just hauls me. And I trade work for doing stuff for him. And then I have the people who I shoot for pick me up a lot of times. They don't charge me. It's just I tell them if they want horses shoot, they got to pick me up. And my wife, she's still got the license, so she don't charge me. I prefer the horse and buggy myself, but it's I need to try to get some. I pay $1 a mile. Yeah, I think the loaded rate used to be 80 cents, but I think it's gone up. When they said a loaded mile, that was usually one way. I don't know. Are you getting charged $1 a mile round trip or $1 a mile one way? E-bike for local. Yeah, bikes can be I don't have a bike, but I used to have one round trip. So you're getting charged $1 per trip. Wow, that does get high. So if you go 800 miles, you can try to pay $1,600. Yeah, I try to find people that are going places and get rides with them. If we're going to auctions, and a lot of times the Amish will split the driver, the cost between ourselves, and it'll be cheaper. If you could say you're going to a horse auction or something, 4 or 5 guys, and then you just split it. That way it's not as expensive for all of us. Yeah, the horse sale's coming up again, so I don't have a whole lot of money to spend because since our house burnt, things have been a little tight. We had, thankfully, some people helped us out, which really helped a lot. Oh, 800 miles would be $800. Okay, yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, I was I think the Amish here, they have drivers they use, but I've never asked them what they pay for drivers. I hear it can be a pretty good business here with the right Amish guys. Some Amish guys like to travel a lot, and then they end up paying a lot of driving charge. I mean, up here we got 2 different communities, and I'd say there's I didn't realize, I think there's more families here than in Engadine. The 2 communities here in the Upper Peninsula, 2 areas, Engadine and here. And this area actually has more families than Engadine, which I was kind of surprised to see that. I thought Engadine's a lot older community, but the land here was cheaper, and I think that drew a lot of men. Land is land runs 1,000 or down an acre for larger pieces. I mean, most places in the U.S. It's going to be a lot more expensive than that. When I was Ohio now, the Amish communities in Ohio, I've heard pieces of land going for 5-acre pieces going for $1 million. That's a lot of money for a piece of land. Yeah, it's just too bad land's so high. It makes it hard for people to start out farming, and if you're not very rich, it's kind of tough. I've always wished I could buy a big piece of land and split it up and start a small community and let people have little small pieces on it, but it's a tricky thing to do that. You get people in there that might not live the way you want them to, and it makes it hard. But there was I think the only place I know where land's cheaper than here is Alaska. But surprisingly, I noticed Alaska has got a lot of land that's more expensive than here, which I've always wondered, with this high prices for living there, that you think the land would be cheaper, but a lot of Alaska land is around $1,000 an acre too, or more.
And northern Maine.
And northern Maine's got cheap land too. That's one, the Potato Triangle. We were up there looking for land, and the land was comparable to here, but a lot of the land that was cheap up there was logged off. It had been logged off, so there wasn't no lumber on it. Loggers would go in and buy a piece, log it off, and sell it cheap. And when you buy a piece like that, you might have firewood, but you don't have lumber. And if you're building your own buildings, it's really important to have that lumber, or it's helpful, cuts your costs down. Now, I would advise people, if you're buying land, look for land with trees on it.
And a good spot for a water wheel.
What's that?
And a good spot for a water wheel.
Well, if they want a water wheel. I mean, water is nice, but usually land with water on it's going to be more expensive.
That's that messy.
There was an auction down in Sturgis today that a farm sale. I was saying, boy, it was all snowy down there. It was probably less people there than usual, and it probably been good prices. But I saw another auction come up 22nd, Sturgis too. Looks like there's been 3 auctions next month in Sturgis. People are selling their farms, the whole farm, all the equipment. So if anybody's looking for equipment, looks like there'll be a few auctions coming up. No, I'm looking for equipment too. So if anybody around here has got something they want to get rid of, contact me and let me know, because I'm interested in looking for horse equipment, riding plow, hay loader, international mowers, or John Deere mowers. I'm hoping this year to try to do everything with the horses we can. Yeah, the price of tractors is way too high for me. So, and I want to stay with the horses anyhow. It's just my goal to use the horses. Is there any more horse farmers on here? I don't see anybody saying they're horse farmers. So I was gonna say, if for being prepared for the future, one thing that's really good to have is make sure you got seeds. I know a lot of people forget sometimes that if you don't have seeds, you can't grow things. And I think when you store your seeds, I would say put them in glass jars. That helps keep the viability up longer. Cool place. Yeah, cool, dry place. Some people put them in freezers, but if you don't have a freezer, you can keep them in a cool place just good. I think the only seeds you can't store for a long time that I've noticed are Mom gave me here. Onions, chives. They have a short storage. Usually about 2 years, 3 years at the most. A lot of other seeds, they'll last 7, 8 years if they're stored in a cool, dry place. We had when our fire, I lost a lot of the seed I had that was upstairs, but I had some in the basement in jars, and they made it through the fire. Thankfully, didn't lose all my old varieties. I started saving seeds when I was 12, and I always enjoy saving my own seed because you get to see a plant try to breed for better. You can kind of pick what you want, pick out if you don't like a certain trait with a plant, you can cull them and work on getting a better crop from the variety you got. And it's interesting how each year, the variation of the years, how things do. I mean, some years you get a real good crop, and next year you won't get as good a crop. But I think overall, it's pretty. It's a good idea to grow your seeds yourself. That way you got seed you know it's going to do good in your locality. You want a hoga? Oh! Back with more ice cream. More. You like that ice cream? Oh, I don't want to eat right now. What's that? Well, yeah, we should get our hand pump in. Yeah, I've got a hand pump. I want to put it in the well, but I need to find somebody to help me to pull the old pump out, put the new one in. It's those long pipes. It's kind of tricky to do by yourself. I mean, I suppose you could, but I've just never done it before. I've done short ones, but not long, deep wells. I think our well's about 90 foot deep. We had dropped the line down, got about 90 foot. I think water was down about 70 in the summer. So got good water, and it never did run dry. A lot of places in this area have artesian springs. I'd say almost all our neighbors got artesian wells. They flow. But we're living higher on a hill. Our place is quite a bit higher than the others, which I don't think we're not on the same aquifer. Now, down in the bottom, they say there's an artesian well down there. I can see the wet spot in the pipe, but I have never found the actual where the flow is coming from. I need to look for it a little more, but haven't spent enough time down in the bottom looking for it. Didn't really need it where we had water up here, so that's one thing that makes it really nice to have water on your place. Is your well PVC? Is your well 20 foot PVC? Our well's 6. I think it's 6-inch PVC, and it's around 90 foot to the bottom, I believe. So it would be 70 foot to water. I mean, there's 70 foot of water in it, so that'd be about 20 foot down. You hit water in the summer. I think in the winter it comes up a little higher. I actually didn't measure it in the winter. I suppose the water table is higher in the winter. It's got to be. No, the water in this area is good. I mean, it's got a good flavor to it. It's not sulfur. Or it doesn't have a high calcium content either. Some places I've lived before, the water's been really hard, and like your pans will calcify. And we don't get a whole lot of calcium here in the water. I suppose we don't have as much calcium or limestone underneath us. Maybe we don't have any. I don't know. We get some, but nothing like Missouri. I mean, Missouri, we had heavy calcium buildup. Our pans would cake up real fast and thick. And the water would turn, if you took the water out of the well and left it sitting, it would turn green from Missouri. And here it doesn't do that. You can let the water sit and it doesn't turn. So I think the water's cleaner. Seems to be cleaner here. Now, 6 pieces of use just the casing of the small pack. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if our pipe is smaller underneath or not. I think all I know is just where I can see, and it's 6 inches. I couldn't tell you what's down at the bottom. I know that when it pumps, the pump pipe is only a little over an inch, but I believe it's an inch. There's a company I've seen that drills wells. Now in Missouri, I had seen the Amish. There was an Amish guy that had the old-fashioned bore drillers, and they put casing in about, I believe it was almost a foot across. It was like the same thing they make tiles out of. It was like a clay casing, and they would lay that in piece by piece after they bored it. And those wells, they didn't bore very deep. As deep. They were a shallower well, but they had I'd say close to a little more water in them. Our place in Missouri had that kind of a well. The only thing I don't like about those kind of wells is you got to keep them covered good, or you'll get stuff in them. The 6-inch ones, it's pretty easy to cover. Keep stuff out of it. It wouldn't be too nice to have a mouse drop in your well. I was growing up, the place we used to live, we had an old hand dug well. It was about 8 foot deep, and it would we could pump it dry in the summer, but it would always come back overnight, and you get water back in it. But that had been dug in the 1800s, that well, and it was only about 8 foot deep, but it still always had water consistently, except it didn't have a lot. You could pump it dry in the summer. Like I said, my mom was washing clothes, it would pump that well dry, and you have to wait till it filled back up. I mean, I've never hand dug a well. So when I lived in Central America, we used rainwater. That's all we used. I mean, we had not enough water year round. We didn't have to ever worry about wells really, because it wasn't necessary. We had rainwater you could use. We just put tanks in and use. Never froze there, so your tank wouldn't freeze. You could just put the gutters on your house, a tin roof, and you get all the water you needed. Even in the dry season, usually, didn't use too much. You were okay because it always rained now and then. It would fill your tank back up. Well, I always said the funny thing was about that rainwater is you got so used to it, when you go to try to drink some groundwater, it would taste so different. You'd be like, what is wrong with this water? And then people who drink groundwater go drink rainwater. They don't like it a lot of times. But no, I noticed too with rainwater. With the first rains that would come down after the fires have been burning, the water would be dirty. So I try to divert it from the tanks. Keep the tank from turning yellow, because bring all the smog and smoke out of the air down into the water. You want to say hi? No, if anybody ever wants to help pull a well pump, I'm looking for somebody with one of those pipe clamps. I need to find somebody with a pipe clamp and pull the pump out and put another one in. The one we've got now is a 220 system, so we use a generator to run the water when we need it. We only pump for the animals and for us. Otherwise, we don't have it turned on. So, but I want to get it set up on a hand pump system so we don't have to use the gas. My goal is to get off the gas completely and just use horses, and hopefully I'll build some either build or get a windmill, and I can. I built a couple windmills, or helped build a couple windmills before. In Belize, I had one made of a John Deere rear end and Mercedes-Benz reduction gear. I used the bottom I take the pipe down, the chassis, the part of the chassis I put on top, welded the pedals on. I always call them pedals. I don't know what you really call them, fan blades, whatever. Weld them on, and then put the tail on. and then had just a round pipe running down to the reduction gear and switch it to a side drive, and then drove a pump on a belt. And I pumped my irrigation water that way. We had So where do you live, Douglas? I think, had you said New York, or maybe I'm not remembering where you'd said before. Yeah, we had I used to pump, I'd say in the dry season when I was watering, I used the old roller pumps, sprayer pumps, and you could use them for about 2 years before the rollers would wear out and you had to replace them. But they were a cheap pump, and they ran well as long as they were primed. You kept them primed, and they didn't get air in them. They ran just fine. You could run them until they wore out, and then replace them. They could pump trash too some. And then I had one piston pump. Those were really expensive, and that could pump pressure. And that one I had on another irrigation system I had set up. The piston pumps, they could pump really good pressure up to about 60 foot, and but they took more power to turn. So the windmill, I used a motor on that one because the windmill, I'm not saying it wouldn't have had the power, but it would have been harder for it. I think if I had West Virginia. So you're down south too. You're probably planting your garden already by now, aren't you? Yeah, we had the piston pumps. I think if you had a geared up system, you could probably run them on a windmill just fine. But the windmill I had was it didn't turn very fast. I mean, when it was blowing, it did. But I think part of my problem was the reduction gear I used actually slowed it down instead of sped it up. I couldn't really find any other gearbox that fit what I needed besides a reduction gear, Mercedes-Benz reduction gear. I suppose if you found one and turned it the other way where you could speed it up, it'd probably even be better. But then it would probably take some welding, and I didn't have a welder, so I just bolted it on, used it as it was. And there was a horsepower I made out of a John Deere rear end. For one horse, I'd saw my wood that way. I had set up, the horse just turned circles around and around. The only problem with that was you had to keep the horse going, and sometimes it tried to run away on you. that was not really fun when you couldn't slow the horse down. I didn't have a brake system on it. Some of them make brake systems where they can break them down. Yeah, we bought a treadmill now. You probably saw that in the videos. I'm going to try to use that. I think that'll be easier because the horse will keep walking even when you're not there. So what happens with the roundabout ones, if you walk away, the horse will stop sometimes, and then it's not quite. If you don't have kids to keep them going, you can have two guys there, a child there to keep the horse going. But you can saw pretty good with one horse. It's a small saw. You can run a pretty good speed, just direct drive. There was do you cut your firewood ahead? Yeah, I try to cut my firewood ahead of time. I mean, we're running out now. We pretty much down to the last of our firewood. If the house hadn't burned, I think we would have been a lot better off. We lost about probably half of our firewood partly burned, which if we hadn't lost that, we would have had plenty of firewood for the winter. But now I'm cutting slabs, and we're burning slab wood. Wife's not so fond of slab wood. She says it's harder to make fire out of. So, but we're gonna burn what we got. So we're burning white pine slab wood, green. It works. I always say what I do is if it's not burning good, if you put one feed bag in on top, it usually will melt down and get it going pretty good. We don't have to worry about not going. Early spring. Yeah, it'd be ideal for me. I think ideal is for us cutting pine, and so it'd be best to cut in the wintertime when the sap's not in the trees. But so far this winter I've been too busy doing all kinds of other stuff, and just with the regular chores and hauling water and hauling wood. I mean, we have to haul wood and water every day. That takes time. With snow, it's kind of been tricky to get cutting done this winter like I'd hoped to. I've been cutting on the sawmill, but It seems like I'd say for us the best time to cut was late fall, winter when the trees were frozen, when the wood was frozen. But I noticed the wood burns a lot better when it's cut, when the sap's not in it. If it's pine, I guess if you burn other kinds of wood, it wouldn't make much difference. But when pine's sappy, that stuff burns 10-foot lengths. Also, you buy your wood. Yeah, we have never bought wood. We just cut out of the woods. We got about
A lot of people up here do buy their wood though, by the semi.
25 acres of woods here, and I've seen a lot of people do buy cordwood or semi-truckloads of wood, but we have plenty of wood in our woods, and I've been clearing off land anyhow, so trying to make more gardens and pastures. So a lot of our land, the land that's the best farm or best gardening land, is all under woods. It's a little sandy and there's some rocks in it. So I guess the guy who lived here before, they just let it grow up in trees or planted pines on it because it wasn't so nice to plow with the rocks in it. But when you're gardening, that sand makes a big difference because the heavy clay here we've got doesn't do as well, especially when it's either too wet or too dry. When it gets dry, you can barely hoe the stuff. It's so hard, and when it's wet, it's sticky. But the sandier soil, it's a lot nicer to farm with. I feel like the crops do a lot better on the sand. It's not pure sand, so I mean, I suppose if it's pure sand, it'd be too dry, but it's kind of a sandy mix, which I'm really thankful to have that sand, because we didn't have sand. We'd have just clay to deal with. Oh, my coffee's gone.
You can't oof my vehicle.
Yeah, most people here in this area have just clay. They don't have sand. So we were fortunate to have a hill with some sand on it. Got a sand pit in the back, which makes it nice too. We can get our own sand. And yeah, I'd say it's sand and rocks, not sand and gravel. There's got big old rocks in it and sand. But yeah, it's been an interesting moving into the north, and the differences between the north and the Midwest. A lot of shorter growing season, and I'd say the economy up here is a lot more. People don't have as much money, and that translates into less people wanting to buy your stuff, because you get people who don't have a lot of money, they can't spend a lot. I noticed in places where people have more money, it was easier to sell stuff. And here it's like a lot of people don't have a lot of money. So you gotta keep your prices down. Otherwise they can't afford it. I suppose the healthy food movement didn't seem to quite catch on here like some places either. Because a lot of people, they don't seem to care if it's organic or not. But I think it's important to try to stay organic. We had last year, I don't think we used any spray at all or any poisons. Only thing I used the 2 years before was soap and sugar and water. Dawn dish soap with a tablespoon Dawn dish soap, a cup of sugar, and a gallon of water. That kills aphids and green worms.
Slugs.
No, slugs it didn't kill, but you can draw slugs with beer. We never had that many slugs. I mean, we had a few, but slugs have never been a big issue here. I think the biggest problem we had was the leather jackets, or the crane flies, and I still haven't really figured a way to kill them things. I mean, they say there's stuff you can put on them, but they're hard to get to. They're under the ground, and they just they eat everything. Yeah, I used to live in Wayne County. It's expensive there, you know. The land is really high priced in the Amish communities. I suppose outside the Amish communities it'd be cheaper. But I had bought a piece there back in the 90s, and I paid $60,000. But that piece now, it'd probably be 4 or 5 times what it was that time. You know, prices have really gone up there. The whenever you get close to an Amish community like that, in either Pennsylvania, Ohio, or Indiana, the price just goes up.
Have another bite.
I think what it is, they all want to stay in the same area, and it drives the land prices up. And you got the tourism aspect, which also seems to drive the price up a bit. Yeah, Wayne County was good growing land. I mean, for the most part. Now, Holmes County, there was some good farms there, but a lot of it was more hilly and rocky. And there's been a couple of times I worked on some hilly farms, and you had to be careful going down the hill with the wagon loaded in hay or corn and whatever. There was one place I worked that it was steep enough that it was a little scary driving that hay mower along the hills. A place to rent. Yeah, it's hard to find stuff in Wayne County. I think Ashland County, it's a little easier to find place in Ashland. If you go, Ashland's very similar to Wayne County. It's more flat. And then like Holmesville, Ohio, it's more hilly and rocky. Land's cheaper down there. But again, lots of Amish in there. And wherever the Amish are, the prices are going to be high. I think the cheapest place was, like I said, northern Maine, here in Michigan and Alaska. Possibly out west, but out west you can't grow anything. It's too dry unless you irrigate. I mean, my dad, at one time, he owned a place in Arizona, and they had a 300-foot well and then some irrigation. It didn't look like good land, but wherever they had water, it was pretty good. So water's important. And up here, I don't think we got the Great Lakes around us. We got Superior, Michigan, Huron. We're surrounded by water, so we got lots of water in this area. Not a problem with water. And we get pretty good rain through the year. Lots of snow in the winter. Oh, baby cats. Everybody's playing baby cats. Will you put the cats back, please? Yeah, I hope if you guys have any questions, I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, I'll probably let you guys go. And if anybody wants to do a chat with me, let me know. Montana. I don't know. I've only been through Montana once, and I never really looked into it that much. I think it gets colder in Montana than it does here. And out west, it's dry. They don't have a lot of rain. Land is, I believe, cheaper, but you can't raise as many animals per acre in Montana as you can here because the grass doesn't grow as much. Most likely because of the rain in the soil. I never looked much into Montana, but I always tried to stay away from dry places, and I think about half the state of Montana is pretty dry. And wherever there's more rain, it's quite a bit easier to grow your crops. Maybe you don't have to irrigate. I mean, irrigation, you can do it. It's just the time and the expense of the irrigation. It's a lot nicer when it rains off and on. Well, if you don't mind cold, I wouldn't mind having good neighbors up here. There's not as many places for sale as there were. They seem to have been sold out over last year, but usually in the spring places will come back on the market again. Well, you guys all take care. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to let you guys go, and we got to eat a late lunch, and hope I have a better more to talk about next time. All right, see you guys all later. Oh, yeah, it's about the best way to reach out to me. You can email me. Look on my On YouTube, on the information, I've got email on there. It's ourheritageseeds@gmail.com.
I'm calling in about 45 minutes.
Or you can call me. If you want my number, just message me. I'll send it to you. You guys all take care.
Take care.